Greetings Guardians, my name is Bife here. While I'm getting back into the groove of videos, and whilst I do have a larger video planned for sometime early next week, talking about the general State of Destiny story, I figured I'd do a more traditional lore video for all of you guys. And as a result, I'm going to touch on yet more scary Nezarec content. What can I say? I'm a creature of habit, and classic villain content does it for me, particularly when it's one like Nezarec, where honestly, a lot of the time, it's just a really fascinating idea. So, this time we have Nezarec being a quite literal sleep paralysis demon for the Kell of the House of Light, Mithrax. In the process, we see the future that Nezarec wanted to create for the Eliksni and the people of the city. So, Nezarec has basically been haunting Mithrax for the better part of a few years now. Whilst this was going on, for the longest time it all seemed like things were relatively normal. There were only a few signs that he was even beginning to deteriorate. I think the biggest note is how we saw a little aggression from him over the course of the Final Shapes post-campaign content. In particular, when he went after Korha, the Eliksni who had murdered his mother all those years ago. But even this aggression wasn't really enough to tip us off to the idea that he was actually being properly haunted and possessed. Of course, we now have a better understanding of why he became haunted. The cutscene at the start of episode Revenant shows us a moment from the end of the Season of the Plunder, where Mithrax distilled darkness from the relics of Nezarec that had been collected over the season. This was made as a means of creating a purer transfusion of darkness. That dark energy and its power over memory and consciousness would be used to wake Osiris from his long slumber. But now it appears that we can see the effects a lot more clearly. By creating and distilling this elixir of darkness, Mithrax seemingly had to separate the influence of Nezarec from that dark energy. It's not hard to see what happened next. The evil influence had to go somewhere, so it went to Mithrax. This is perhaps also something that explains the so-called Curse of Nezarec, a foul magic that rested upon the relics, bringing death to all those who laid claim to them. Luckily for us, Mithrax has now been cured of this affliction. As it turned out, our own previous method of banishing the final god of pain was actually fairly effective, and was pretty similar to the method used by Eramis in that final moment of Revenant. In Root of Nightmares, we fought Nezarec with the power of the light and darkness. That beam which hits him just before you do DPS is exactly what that's manifesting. It's the reason why you're picking up and connecting the dots going on the left and right hand side, one of which is a group of seeds of light and the other is a bunch of seeds of darkness. Eramis instead used the power of the Echo to do the exact same thing. Using its combined energies of light and darkness, she flayed the very essence of Nezarec from Mithrax's being, removing the influence of the disciple before he could make an attempt to claim the Echo for himself. That's all the better, because if Mithrax had claimed the Echo and subsequently had fallen to Nezarec's influence, there is no telling what could have happened to the world at large. What we do know is that it would have been nothing good for the Eliksni. As you continually progress through the fortress of Fikrul, you get dialogue from Nezarec as he manifests momentarily within Mithrax, using his voice to speak his purpose. His simple promise is that he will unleash havoc and ruin upon the Eliksni. The exact details of how are somewhat graphic. The idea of scorn rupturing forth from the Eliksni is an image that's gruesome when you recognize what's actually happening. For those of you who don't quite understand, the closest analogy I think is a little bit like boiling your blood, turning it all to necrotic soup, and then forcing you to open your eyes again as something dead that doesn't recognize anything in the world around it. A new being, born of pain. We do, however, see a moment where these promises are manifested in a more disturbing dream that is perceived only by Mithrax, a dream that is specifically shared to us in the lore tab of the Restless Dreams Ghost Shell from Revenant. Before reading this, I think it's worth pointing out that Nezarec is also a being that generally has used dreams in the past to communicate with his victims. If you're going to look into any of Nezarec's lore, this becomes very obvious. The most recent example outside of Mithrax includes the citizenry of Neomuna, who all suffered regular nightmares up until the point at which we defeated the final god of pain in the Root of Nightmares raid. That lore tab, which features Mithrax's dream, reads as follows. The rigidity in his limbs was unnatural. His breathing was short, quickened as his eyes searched the dark room. Any attempt to crane his neck was impossible. The paralysis had sunk deep into his bones. He sensed a presence. It was a subtle thing, barely noticeable. But Mithrax knew. He tried to speak, but his mandibles did not budge. The darkness in the room breathed. Mithrax strained his eyes to peer towards the edge of the blankets he'd been using as temporary bedding during the development of the Varisis core. Rays of moonlight from a nearby window allowed him to spot the gnarled fingers of a shadowed hand curl and rip into the fabric. A chill accompanied its agonizingly slow ascension up his body, tendrils dancing wildly off its twitching figure. A chorus of whispers rose into a symphony. The entity lifted its head to reveal a ring of eyes. Porn. Its voice echoed within him. Kell of demise, of fear. Intrusive flashes took over his mind. Fire, burning buildings, screaming Elixni. At first, he thought this might have been Rhys, a memory that was not his. But instead, he recognized the familiar streets of the lost city. His home. He looked down at his hands, coated in shadows and blood. We will make it their reality. Below him was a body, torn and bloody, with Ido's face. Panic flooded his being. Fear. A mouth grew on this creature's form, icy breaths and rows of sharp teeth dripping with black sludge. No! Mithrax shot up, suddenly free, and blinked to reveal an empty room. The door swung open. Father? Ido was unharmed. Mithrax remained quiet, breathing unevenly, and gazed down at the blankets in time to see wisps of darkness emanating from a few tears in the fabric. The dreams of Nezarec are never something pleasant. Within all of Destiny's lore, wherever they occur, there is one universal aftermath to it, which is that the victim is traumatized, left in a state where sleep is not easy. Insomnia is something that is embraced, as the alternative is terrible. The thing about these nasty dreams isn't just that they represent the possible will of Nezarec, but it's also that more often than not, the final god of pain was very used to getting his way. And so these dreams, presented to others, often ended up being reality in the end. There are others who were driven mad by Nezarec's dreams. Take Briar, for example, a warlord titan who caught Nezarec's attention for his savagery back in the Dark Ages. He was so possessed by the waking dreams and creeping voice of Nezarec that he burnt down his own home in solar light. He was fighting off the same shadowed claws and hands that Mithrax saw in his dreams. In the end, it was so terrifying that he cut his own eyes out. Then, there are the many instances involving the Scions, all of whom died at Nezarec's behest. This occurred because the final god of pain appeared by spectre and selected his victims. Soon after this moment, his cultists would claim the victim, and their horrific end was a certainty. The best way I can describe their demise is that Nezarec latched onto them with dark tendrils that attached to their shadows. Then, as their bodies were jolted back and forth, their life force was consumed. It's worth remembering that for a scion in particular, this is rather horrifying, as they are beings of both material bodies and also of psychic energy. So the idea that they themselves were specifically consumed like this implies that it wasn't just their life force that was consumed, but perhaps their memories. Though, of course, it's difficult to speculate on this particular note, simply because of the fact that we can't tell. The only moment at which we learn about this is from the memories of a scion called Acacia, whose husband and her memories of his passing provide the only proof as to what Nezarec did in the days when he was worshipped by the scions. All this is to say that Nezarec is a being of an utterly insatiable nature and is difficult to kill. He will doubtless appear in more dreams from here, and I doubt that he has been defeated forever in this moment. We have found a consistent means of banishing him, at least, a pure and potent concentration of paracausal energy. In both our instances, darkness and light appear to have been enough to banish his spiritual form and destroy his physical form. It is possible that this can also be accomplished in a lesser way using only darkness, given that Savathun might have used the power of the Veil and Strand in particular to destroy Nezarec during the collapse. Regardless, his nightmarish grasp may still be out there, given that a sufficiently large amount of lore has been written and dedicated to his cultists, who are now presumably led by Michael and Nessa. I think we're still not done with the final god of pain just yet. It's a question that I've posed in similar videos previously about Nezarec. I don't know if you can kill a god. And there are many things in Destiny's universe that qualify themselves as gods, whether correctly or not. The definition is stretched and loose when you take a look at something like Axis, a machine god. You realize that it's only a god in certain definitions. When you take a look at an individual like Oryx, who was planning to become axiomatic with laws of the universe, you realize that he was closer to the real thing. And then there's Nezarec, who has been killed and brought back several times, who has been banished, and who has made his presence clear still. Even after his death, his dissection, his resurrection, his destruction by the Guardians, and now his banishing by the Echo, it isn't clear that he is gone forever. I would anticipate Nezarec still remains. And, as a result, I don't think we're done with the final god of pain, or his nightmares, just yet. But that's all from me for now. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you did enjoy, go ahead and leave a like, and if you want more lore from worlds near and far, go ahead and hit subscribe and the bell next to subscribe to turn on those email notifications. But as per usual, know that your viewership, as always, is quite enough for me. And that in the meantime, my name is Bife. Rodacia Arastra. I'll see you, Starside.